Right, it's recording.
Yeah.
Please.
Of course.
No one on.
Oh wow, when you started.
Yeah, you're doing it for yourself.
Yeah.
Even if he's just an employee there, you just
That's right.
smear him up a bit.
So you want to be able to like get your stock quicker, etc. You want to get your stock quicker and things like that.
I hope, make him feel good that every time next time I come in, he remembered my account number. I saw his head. He gave me a good service. He was all happy. So make his service, give him something. Next time I come in, he'll remember. And give me I know there's an in in that, but I'm not sure if it was applied to the employee.
That's not considered.
No, Christian is not a good enough reason. I know that. If I make Christian that next time he sees me, that Jew gave me something, and then he'll be more motivated to help me. I know that applies to a business owner. I wasn't sure if it's just a big conglomerate to work within that.
That's fine. There's a pasuk in Pashnit Sovim. What does that pasuk mean? Everybody knows the tune. What's the pasuk mean? There's a famous Machlokes Rashi Ramban. Rashi says that even though Kol Yisrael Avevim, but you're not punished for aveiros that the individual does in private. The Ramban says that aveiros that a person's unaware of, let's say aveiros did b'shoigeg, Hashem forgives for. More than 25 years ago, there was a Rav invited round about 15, 20 boys, and he said, I'll offer 50 pence to anybody that can prove a riot to Rashi or the Ramban. So I'm offering the same 50. I don't know if I've got 50 pence on me. You can bring a riot to the 50 pence. It was more than 25 years ago. I might have it. Yes, I got 50 pence. Very, very quickly. No, I never got it. So till today, I regret that I never knew the answer. Once I heard the answer, I was kicking myself. So Rashi or the Ramban, Pshat in that posuk. I said two explanations what Pshat in that posuk is. Rashi says that there is that person that's in private, there's no aveirus. Right? If Chashim I do, let's say I do not aveir in private, we don't say that whole class will punish because of my aveir in private. Ramban says that aveir is that person does which is not well, unless he didn't aveir by mistake. He didn't realize today that you ate something forbidden. We bring a right. You've got 30 seconds, not even 15 seconds.
Where are we bringing a ride from the Gemara?
Any ride from anywhere, very, very quickly. 10 seconds, 5. No. When I was back more than 25 years ago as a kid, so somebody came in and said, I'll offer 50 pence, anybody brings a proof. You all lost it. Now you get to be kicking yourself the rest of the evening. When you keep a davening in the vidui, we say that we'll ask Hashem Mechila for the ones that we know, and the ones that we don't know, for you know, like the pasuk says, like the Ramban says, the aveiros which a person is not aware of, Hashem forgives. Not like Rashi. Okay, very good. It's a right Ramban from the davening. In davening, we say explicitly like the Ramban. Now you get to be all upset with yourself. You could have earned 50 pence. What do you mean? Yeah, someone's laning. That's all. Okay, we're getting completely off the point, isn't it, as usual? We're up to Umi Omar B'Shimon Alozo. Hochi. Kasha, that's what we're up to. Very briefly. What happens if a person is a big fresser? How much a ruvet chumin does he have to give?
Average.
Oh, average. What? We are going to normal people. Fade the Gemara. This is who said that. Shimon Elazar said that. Umi Omar Shimon Elazar. Did Shimon Elazar really say that? That you go after average people. V'atanya. We're up to 6 lines down on Lamed Amud Aleph. V'atanya. This is halacha regarding a dead body. Imagine there'd be a dead body in this room, and people would be standing in the next room over there, or in this passageway. Would they become Tomei?
Yeah.
Yes. Why?
There's a hole.
No. I don't know if it's because this is the old there, that's the old there.
Hole.
Because eventually you're going to move the dead person out of the room. And we don't know if I'm going to move him out this way or that way. So therefore, everybody's tummy. If we know that I'm only going to take the dead person out of that way, the people in that window are okay. How can I know that I'm taking him out of that way? There's a number of ways. For example, if I close off this door, open that door. Alternatively, I make a decision that I'm going to take it out that way. Alternatively, that one door is big and that one is small and he only fits through that one. That's the way. Let's go through it. So that's very important because getting right. So we've got a question. So what do you do? Now, what happens if you've got Oig Melech HaBoshen lying in the room? Now, as the Mitzvah says, we don't mean literally Oig Melech HaBoshen. Why can't we mean literally Oig Melech HaBoshen? Besides that, he's already dead. Because? No, much more for halachic reason. A goy is not metame ba'oyer. So therefore, we can't be talking about Oig Melech HaBoshen. He's a goy. A goy is not metame ba'oyer. We mean a Jewish Oig Melech HaBoshen. Again, let's see this bias. Now, according to Shimon Elazar, whose logic by Eiruvin was that you go according to the average appetite. So when you go after a big body, you should go according to the same logic. So let's see this verse inside. Botanya, you want to open an entrance and say, now I know. For example, let's say this doorway is open, this doorway is big and this doorway is small, and there's a dead body. If the dead body is like the size of Oig Melech HaBoshen, then you can only say that he'll go out this way if he actually fits. Now that's contradictory to what we just said a minute ago. What did we say a minute ago by Erev Tchumen? That if you got a big eater, you go according to the average. So the same thing. Okay, Omar Abai, the answer is quite obvious. Hossam, Heichi Levad, what should you do? You're going to chop him up and take him out? Of course not. So therefore, obviously, when you've got a big size, you know that you're going to go out through that entrance. You can't compare it to Ruvei Tchumen, where a person who's very big eater can still eat a normal meal. Here, it's a technical problem. You're saying that you're going to take the person out of this entrance, but if that entrance can't fit him, the only way you're going to cut him up, which you're not going to do, which means that anyway you're going to have to then employ another way of getting him out. So if that's the case, you can't rely that that's the entrance to take him out. Says the Gemara, do the Chachamim argue on Shimon Elazar or not? Toshema. Oig Melech HaBoshen Pischei Ba'arbo. The Oig Melech HaBoshen, again, not literally. The entrance has to be 4 tvachim. So we see clearly that we don't need that the size of the entrance should be the size of the body. 4 tvachim is quite small, right? 4 tvachim is less than an arm, about 40 centimeters. So we see that that's enough. Why? Because once we have an entrance of 4 tvachim, so we say obviously that's the way you're going to take him out. So it says, look, Hossam there, we're talking about you've got loads of little entrances. Imagine tiny entrances like the ones up there in the windows. Probably 4 tvachim, but imagine even smaller. And you've got one big one. So we know that you're going to eventually have to widen the entrance. Which one are you going to widen? Obviously the big one. So therefore, everybody agrees in such a case that 4 tvachim is enough. But when did the Chachamim and Shimon Elazar argue? Was a different case, slightly more complicated. Rashi explains this. Is when all the entrances are 4 tvachim, but 2 of them are closed and 1 is open. So the Chachamim say that the fact that the 1 is open is a proof that that's the one you're going to use. Comes on with Shimon Elazar and says, no, if the other 2 would be small and this one is big, I would agree with you that you're going to use the big one because it's the easiest to widen. But over here, you're not relying on the fact that the other 2 are small, this one is big, but rather because the other 2, the doors are closed, and this one, the door is open. So therefore, you're definitely going to choose the open one? No. That would only be true in a normal body where you can actually take him out in a 4 tvachim entrance. But if you could take it, but since a 4 tvachim anyway doesn't suffice, because we're talking about a big body, therefore you're anyway going to have to take a widen it, therefore you've got no riot. So let's summarize. There are 3 ways to define which way around you're going to take out the mace, and what's the purpose of knowing is in order that afterwards other entrances should not be tommy. The 3 ways are a decision, that you decide it, or all the doors are closed except for that one, or it's the right size. Now, in a case where one is big and the rest are small, everybody agrees that even if the body cannot fit, we rely on the fact that you'll use the bigger one. Why? Because when you have to widen, we know you're going to widen the big one. In a situation where some are closed and some are open, or one is open, and it's not big enough, that's the machlokas. Shimon also says that in the end of the day, how can you rely on the fact that you're going to go out through the big one which is open? It's not big enough. So you're going to anyway have to force to widen. So you might open another one which has been closed till now. Chacham say, no, that one's open, you can rely on that. So therefore, this has nothing to do, Lamais, the Gemara says, with the Ruvei Tchumen, because since by there you've got no choice but to actually open up a big entrance because you're not going to cut off the body. By Ruvei Tchumen, it is possible for a person to eat a smaller meal. So therefore, a big appetite we go after normal, but regarding that to be retired, the other entrances, we have to understand how will you be able to get the body out. Okay. Says the Gemara, more halachas Ruvei Tchumen. You can use raw meat. You can even use raw eggs. The Meiri points out, raw eggs is not something which a person often eats, but sometimes a person will eat it. So if you can use raw eggs, can't cook an egg on Shabbos. Yes, you have to cook an egg on Shabbos. Says the Gemara, "V'kama how many eggs?" Omar Nachman by Yitzchok, Sinai Omar. Who's Sinai? Does anybody know who Sinai is? Rabbi Yosef was famous that he knew everything, so he was called Sinai. Sinai says, "Shtaim, you need 2 eggs." So if you want to make a Ruvei Tchumen, you just use 2 eggs. Right. The Gemara doesn't ask. The Gemara asked that earlier about roasted meat, so you have to work hard for the Gemara doesn't discuss it. Right. The Mishnah says you can't use water and salt for a Ruvei Tchumen. Similarly, if a person makes a neder, let's say I say I'm forbidding myself to eat food, then am I allowed to eat apples? No. But I'm allowed to eat water and salt. Why? It's not called mozen. So now we're going to discuss. Oh, orange juice is called mozen. Right. Oh, why do we say, why, if you say apples are called mozen, why don't we say bomenim and zinus on apples? That's one question which the Gemara is going to ask. But I just want to point out there's a slight difference between mozen and zon. Mozen is something which satisfies and fills. Zon is something which nourishes. Something can nourish but not satisfy. Mozen is a higher level. So the Gemara is going to discuss intricate like details of a person's expression. Water and salt is not called mozen. Everything else is called mozen. So for example, if you say I'm not going to eat any mozen, you can't eat an apple. You only say B'nai in the 5 minutes. And according to them, you only say B'nai in oats, the 5 wheat, barley, oats, spelt, and rye. But for example, if you're going to eat rice, you don't say Mezonah. So if you eat apples, you don't say Mezonah. We don't pass that on Shmuel. But the fact is, how can you say that? Our Mishnah says that everything is mozik. They already asked the kasha in brachos. Let's say there's a kasha from this Mishnah as well. He didn't say kol mozon olai. He said kol zon olai. Anything which nourishes. Nourishing, even apples will nourish, even oranges will nourish. Water and salt don't nourish. Everything else nourishes. The Gemara says a statement by Rabbi who want to describe how sweet the fruit of Tveria Genoisa were. The Gemara brings this in a few places for different nafkiminas. When somebody eats something very, very sweet, he doesn't get satisfied. He's ready to eat more and more and more. If you ever started, I don't know, a packet of jellies or something, chocolates, you just eat and eat. You never get satisfied. So Rabbi wants to describe how sweet the fruit were of Tveria. To give us a chashivus of Eretz Yisrael. Once I was walking behind Rabbi Yochanan, whenever I used to walk behind Rabbi Yochanan, to eat the fruit of Genoisa, which is around the Kinneret, if there were 100 of us, each one of us would have to pluck 10 fruit. 100 people plucking 10 fruit is how many fruit? 1,000. If there was only 10 students, 10 Talmidim, and each one would have to collect 100, again coming to 1,000. So Rabbi Yochanan always wanted to eat 1,000 fruit. If there was 100 Talmidim, every time it had to produce 10 fruit. If there was 10 Talmidim, every time it had to produce 100 fruit together, they would come to 1,000 fruit. And these weren't small fruit, but they were big ones. Every 100 of these fruit, you have a basket which was the size of 3 sa'ah, which is about 400-500 eggs. Such a big basket, yes, I've had it before, would not be able to contain these fruit. They were so big, these fruits. The Birchner would eat all 1,000 fruit, Va'omar, after eating 1,000 food, he would say, Shvuos, I make a shvur, I've not eaten anything nourishing. I'm still hungry. So you see that eating 1,000 fruit, he wasn't nourished. So we see, not like what we just said now, that fruit is zon. Ema, you have to say mezoina. That he didn't say zon, he said mozon. That after eating 1,000 fruit, I wasn't satisfied because he was still ready to eat more. But nourished he was. Right. Now, the Gemara discusses now, can you use something which is forbidden with a neder for ruvei tchumin? Amisha didn't talk about that. Amisha just said you can't use water and salt for ruvei tchumin. And also, if you promise not to get food, you're allowed to eat everything. You're not allowed to eat anything except water and salt. The question, let's say I make a neder. I'm not going to imagine this is a loaf of bread. I make a neder. I'm not going to eat this loaf of bread.
Same thing in the coin.
Oh, very good. So if he has a nozer and a kohen, that even though they can't eat from what they can. Now, what happens if I say I won't benefit from this loaf of bread?
You benefit.
But now, by using it for ruvei tchumin, I am benefiting. That means you're right. That, again, if I say I'm not going to eat it, as you pointed out correctly, it's indirect benefit. Okay, let's go slowly. I hear what you say, but let's just go slowly. If I say I'm not going to eat the loaf of bread, this loaf of bread, that doesn't matter. As you both said correctly, by a nozer using wine and a kohen using tumah is also okay. He certainly can't eat it. The answer is that somebody else can eat it. If I say I'm not going to benefit, then it's much worse. Because using it for ruvei tchumin is a benefit. The Rashi and the other Rishonim, Rashi brings one reason why perhaps it should be okay. Rashi brings an interesting reason. That when you say I'm not going to benefit from bread, usually you mean the normal benefit. What's the normal benefit of bread? Eating it. So if you use it for ruvei tchumin, it's not a normal benefit, therefore it's okay. That's one pshat of Rashi's, perhaps it should be okay. Another pshat which is brought down that goes for tziyunim, it's like this. Mitzvahs la v'henes nitnu. There's no reason, you don't get pleasure from mitzvahs. So ruvei tchumin is not really a pleasure. This goes back and forth a little bit. Where does come a big nafmina for Rosh Hashanah? We'll see later. Let's say you've got a shofar and you made a neder not to benefit from the shofar. Can you use it for tkiyah shofar? Yes. Because this is already said. Okay, we'll come to it later. I just want to go again. If I say I'm not going to eat a loaf of bread, I can use it for ruvei tchumin because it doesn't matter. Somebody else can eat it. If I say I'm not going to benefit from it, you could say, no, you're not allowed to use it for ruvei tchumin anymore. You say you're not going to benefit, use it for ruvei tchumin is a benefit. Alternatively, you could say, yes, you can. Why? Why can you? For two reasons. Either because the normal benefit is eating, and I'm not trying to eat it, I'm using it for ruvei tchumin, and let somebody else eat it, let's say. Alternatively, because mitzvahs have anything. Now, the Gemara doesn't go into the reason so much. The Gemara just goes into mutter asa, mutter asa. But the Gemara doesn't actually go into the logic. The Rishonim explained the logic we just said. What did you want to say? The ruvei tchumin. The Gemara much later asks, Pashas, it's a mitzvah. Why would you say it's not a mitzvah? Let's say I'm not allowed to walk out of the tchum. I need to hear shofar mashal. It's a mitzvah. So now I've heard the shofar. So I've been carrying a mitzvah. This is I've read it to. So I don't understand why you could differentiate it from tkiyah shofar. I'm saying there is a logic.
The tchum is in a mitzvah, so you can't do it. And you're going.
Okay, so it's an extra mitzvah.
You don't do the same thing with anything like chomot base. You know that I'm not from it.
No. There, you're eating it, getting pleasure.
You're saying that you're not getting a no from it. You're not getting a no from it. If you put it.
No, again. So next lifshachem. So you're doing a mitzvah. You make a bracha, by the way. If you make a tchumin, you make a bracha. Oh, very good. Chaim asked the kasha. So you are getting a no, that you can walk further than you would have been without the tchumin. That's a different question. But I don't know if anybody else will argue that. Okay, maybe that's what you were meant to say. That the Gemara asks much later. But the pashas is not a no. You make a bracha ruvei tchumin. It's a mitzvah. I have to do it. You're asking. Let's say I want to go and visit a friend, or I want to eat a piece of cake. Let's say you're making a birthday party, and it's 3,000 amos away. Without eiruvin tchumin, I won't get any piece of that birthday cake. So now eiruvin tchumin has given me a benefit, but that's already you can argue with that. We'll come to it much later. No, mitzvah have this to do something else. Mitzvah have this to do is the mitzvah. Being a kind of mitzvah is not a pleasure. So, okay, the Gemara doesn't go into the logic so much. Go later. Okay, the Gemara now just discusses mutter or asa. Let's see the Gemara inside. Omar Avona, Omar Rav. Shvuah, if I make a shvuah shlei chakika zu, I'm never going to eat this loaf of bread. Ma'avin lo bo. I can do an eruv. Why can I do an eruv? What did we just say before? Like a nozer. Very good. Kika zu alai. If I say I'm never going to benefit from this loaf of bread, you can't, because you said not going to benefit. You can't make it with so you're not going to benefit. Maybe I know doing that kick or you can't make it. My love, don't lie. Oh, we're not talking about what you said I won't benefit. No, I won't eat it. The Brisa continues that we're talking about a case where I said I'm not going to eat it, then you can't. But if you say you're not going to have pleasure, so then you can. If you're going to have no pleasure, then you're not allowed to. If you say that I'm never going to get pleasure, you're not allowed to the Eiruvin. The Brisa finishes off that if you make a loaf of bread into hekdesh, then you can't do an Eiruvin with it, because hekdesh is not supposed to be used for your own personal things. Hekdesh is special for Hashem. So you see, if you hold, now we always have a principle that we never would try to differentiate. We always try to differentiate the closest possible example. We don't go for one extreme because that's not a big chiddush. That means if you're going to say that already by neder, sometimes not allowed to do it with tchumen. For example, if you say I'll never get pleasure from it, why did you have to look all the way to hekdeshus and say by hekdesh you can't use it with tchumen? Find a situation by Eiruvin itself, by neder itself, where, for example, you said I won't benefit, and according to you, Rav Huna, what did you just say? That if you say I won't benefit, you can't use it for Eiruvin tchumen, and then there's a much bigger chiddush. Why did you have to come on to hekdeshus? So what it says, differentiate within the same case. If you say on me, you can't do a nail. What are you going to tell me? If you're going to say that you're not allowed to do an ale, you are allowed to do, that you are allowed to do an ale, when you say, I will not benefit, kashavesha. The beginning of the Brisa is difficult, because what did the Brisa say? Only in the case Amos says, a shvur that I won't eat it. Mashma, if like a shvur more than I won't eat, a shvur that I won't benefit from it, then you're not allowed to. Sigor says, no. Without Rav Huna, there's a way to explain this Brisa without Rav Huna. How? Even if it says I won't get pleasure, it's like to make the shvur that I won't eat it. Let me take this. Without Rav Huna, we would say the Brisa is saying as follows: if you say I won't get pleasure from the loaf of bread, then you're all allowed to do it. If you make it hekdesh, you're not allowed to. So that's very good without Rav Huna, because you're always allowed to make an Eiruvin tchumen, even with something you're not allowed to get pleasure from. Either because, as we said, because the main pleasure is eating, or because this is Avenis. Therefore, you're allowed to use it for Eiruvin tchumen. But if it's hekdesh, then you're not allowed to. That would be without Rav Huna. But now, according to Rav Huna, that differentiates even between neder, that sometimes yes, sometimes not, depending on the nusach of the neder, depends on the language of the neder. Did you say I won't eat it, or did you say I won't get pleasure from it? So then why did the Brisa have to come all the way to hekdeshus, talk about a neder and differentiate within neder as to whether you're allowed to or not, depending on what you said regarding the loaf of bread? Answers the Gemara, Hu Domar Kabbaleza. It's Machlekes Tanoim. The Tanya of Lezer, Ima Shvur Shleich HaKikol Zu. I'm not going to make a shvur, I won't eat the loaf of bread, Ma'avin Leibo. Kikol Zu Olai, this kicker is on me. Forbidden, Ein Ma'avin Leibo, you're not allowed to get pleasure. Because you see clearly that Rabbi Lezer of Huna holds like Rabbi Lezer. Fade the Gemara. When we are Rabbi Lezer, did Rabbi Lezer actually say this? Well, Tanya Zakla. Adam Isa Atzmoi Ba'oichel. If a person says, I won't eat, Ma'avin Leibo. You can do an Eiruvin tchumen. Why? Because he's not going to eat. You still get pleasure. So somebody else will eat it. But if the food is forbidden to a person, meaning that a person will get pleasure from it, you can't do an Eiruvin. If you say this loaf of bread is forbidden to be completely, you can still do an Eiruvin. So you see, Rabbi Lezer says, not like that. We have a steer in Rabbi Lezer. In one place, Rabbi Lezer says that if you make something hekdesh, then you can't use it for Eiruvin tchumen. But if you just use it and you say it's forbidden to me, anyway, and even in any pleasure, you're still allowed to use it for Eiruvin tchumen, which contradicts what he said earlier. Answers the Gemara, three Tanoim with Rabbi Lezer. It's two Tanoim according to Rabbi Lezer. And we actually paskin that you're allowed to use an Eiruvin loaf of bread, even if you made a neder, that you're not going to get any pleasure from it whatsoever. Oh, what about Chaim's questions? So we'll ask him much later. But that's it. So I'll tell you that later. It's good to have something to think about. So again, you're allowed to use a loaf of bread even if you forbade it completely on yourself. either because this is or because normal pleasure is to eat, and therefore a person didn't really mean not to do it for Uvei Tchum. Okay. The Mishnah says you're allowed to use wine for Nazir and Truma for Yisrael. Marvin the Nazir b'yayin chulu. My sister look at the Shabbat. It doesn't go like the Shabbat. Why? The Shabbat. Hey, Marvin Nazir b'yayin Yisrael b'Truma. Shabbat hold you can't. You have to be able to eat it. You can. Abu then Basil Bishama Iatem Moidim, top of Lamadam base. Shemarvin the Godul Bima Kippur, we have Yom Kippur soup. On Yom Kippur as well, you're not allowed to walk out of the Tchum. So let's say you want to walk out of the Tchum. What are you going to do? Put down 2 eggs. Now, will you be able to eat the eggs in Yom Kippur? No. So you see that you don't need to be able to eat it. Omulen, Avol, you're right. Yom Kippur, you don't need to be able to eat it. Omulen, Kshemish Marvin the Godul Bima Kippurim, Kach Marvin the Nozer Biyan Uli Yisor B'Truma. If you're allowed to use bread on Yom Kippur, why can't you use wine for Nozir? And so, no, Bishamai, Hosam Ikisuda Vuim. When Yom Kippur came in, every Yom Kippur, you could have eaten it. But Bishamai hold that you have to be able to get a pleasure from it, because otherwise a Nozir would be allowed to.
The Nazir was on his first day, then we got into the whiskey.
If Nazirus was only Chal on Shabbos, then Friday they'd be allowed to. So even according to Bishamai would be okay. And yeah, that's good. That's a good question. Says the Gemara like this. The Gemara is going to bring an opinion, a new chiddush in Uvei Tchumen, which we don't pass like. That according to Chananya, the way you do Uvei Tchumen is not with food, but you have to take everything that you need for the Shabbos. Can you imagine? If you want to do Uvei Tchumen, you have to take everything that you need for Shabbos.
Everything you need for journey or everything you need for Shabbos?
Everything you need for Shabbos. Let's say, for example, you wear a black suit Friday night, the white suit Shabbos morning. Then you have to take your black suit and your white suit to the place of your Uvei Tchumen according to Chananya. Because they hold that the way you do a Uvei Tchumen is showing that this is where you're living. Where you live, you take all the things that you need.
You can still go back to your house.
Yes. Right. So now, this machlokes we had Bisham and Beis Hillel, does that fit in with Chananya or not? No. Because why not? Because they were arguing as to Nazir with wine or not. Nobody discussed his clothes. So this is clearly not like Chananya. It says, Mokiman, look at Chananya. It doesn't feel like Chananya. The Tanya Chananya Yomi, Kolatzon Shabbat Beishamai held, Lo Yomoid Bevat Yotzi Mitasi, take your bed, Bechol Klei Tashmish of the shop. You have to take everything that you need. All your clothes, everything, your pots, everything. Then you're creating a shvisa. It says, well, also the time you've got a bias that says let's say a person went there, he dropped off his black suit, and then he came home, and because you're allowed to, you go there, you create a shvis, and then you come home. That's the idea. Then on Shabbos, if you want to walk further, Lo Yetze, but Levonim is not allowed to wear his white suit that Shabbos. But Levonim, if you put his white suit, then Lo Yetze b'shchayim. Come on, Omar Nachman, talk Chananya. He believed to be Shammai. It must be according to Chananya, according to be Shammai, that they say that you have to be created a shvisa with the clothes that you need. So if you put your black suit, you can't go on with the white suit. Says the Gemara, Chananya b'shchayim u'do Lo Yetze b'Levonim Yetze. According to Chananya, you're not allowed to wear your white suit, but your black suit you're allowed to. You haven't taken all your clothes there. Again, on Friday afternoon you went, took your black suit there. You come back home, says the Bible, you're not allowed to wear your white suit. You're not allowed to wear you're not allowed to wear your black suit and you're not allowed to wear anything. You're not allowed to go out of your rishus. Why? Because you weren't doing a shvisa. Why were you not doing a shvisa? Because you didn't put your white suit there. So therefore the fact is that you can't move. What's after shchoimim? If you do an Erev Tchumim with your white clothes, and you now decide I want black suit, you're not even allowed to wear your white suit. So again, the Mitzvah explains, we don't mean that a person has to take every piece of clothing he ever owns. He has to take all the clothes that under normal circumstances he would wear that Shabbos. So whatever you would normally use that Shabbos, that is... Those, what do you mean? So
You've only got one pair of pajamas, can't you? You're planning on sleeping at home.
Yeah. Maybe you have to.
Black suit. Does it mean you just have to have another black suit?
No. It must be you have to take all your clothes there. You're asking.
And then bring it back.
Doesn't work.
We were discussing yesterday that clothes. We're not discussing it. We're probably in the other shit. It's in the other shit. Clothes were quite hot. People didn't have.
They didn't have as many clothes as we have that.
things of clothes.
Yeah.
That's
So what
us.
I mean.
Okay, I hear. I don't see. I don't know how practically it would work. I mean, how would it work to bring back the clothes would go?
If you want to make two different
Again,
locations.
so the point is like this: if you took your black suit and now you decide that for this Shabbos you want a white suit, then you can't go out at all out of the tchum, because you're showing that now you should have taken your white suit there. So therefore, the fact is that you can't do it with tchum.
When you get there, you change.
Yeah, where is the suit? Don't get the suit.
No, so I suppose a person, for example, has one normal suit. I don't know if they must remember in old days they didn't wear pajamas. People know when they would
What do
go
you
on
mean
the
that?
sheets
He's
and
got
that thing.
the there, takes it there, and then walks back with
That's
it.
like with his clothes. Yeah, of
The guy
course.
with
Yes.
the same suit.
That's
Leave
like,
it
that's
there.
go with the same suit.
You just have to sit.
Yeah,
with
you
your
have to
suit.
just sit there on Friday when Shabbos comes in, then you come home. No, he was asked about the pajamas and things like that. What would he do?
If you have two different locations, you want two
No, you're only sleeping in one
No, you
place.
can't. You can't.
You're only sleeping in one place.
I know, but you can't say he's taking calculator shmisho there.
Ah.
Right. Okay. I hear. Okay, that's a problem. Okay. So far we've had 3 opinions in what you need to do to become a shvisa. What's the 3 opinions we've had so far? We're going to have more. Shittas, we had one time in our Mishnah that says a noz is allowed to take wine. Shittas Beis Shammai, the first Beis Shammai we saw, was a noz can't take wine. Why can't he take wine? Because he can't eat it, can't drink it. But if he takes, if a normal person takes wine, that's good enough. Then we had Chananya b'Shittas Beis Shammai, that not only is wine not good for Yisrael, but he saw, or somebody's not a Nazir, but he has to even take with everything that he needs for the Shabbos. So that's a much bigger chumash. So far we had 3 shittas. We have one further shitta, that's Shittas Sumchas, if you remember. That was Sumchas in our Mishnah. That Sumchas in our Mishnah said that a Yisrael can't use Truma. A Yisrael cannot use Truma. That means, that's the question we're going to discuss now. Let's get it very clear. The Tanakam of our Mishnah, which we said was Shittas Beis Hillel, said that Yisrael is allowed to use Truma and the Noz is allowed to use wine. What? Just? Oh, it's also straightforward. You can't redeem. Truma can't be redeemed. You can't be redeemed. It's not hekdesh. You can undo it by asking. Well, again, let's get clear the parameters. The Tanakam Mishnah says Yisrael is allowed to take, and Noz is allowed to take wine, and Yisrael is allowed to take Truma. Comes along with Sumchas and says not Truma, but yes, wine. The question is, what's the difference? In both cases, the person who's taking over Truma is not able to actually eat it. Oh, Sumchas Omer B'chul. Within the Noz, B'yayin Polik. He doesn't argue. My Tama. Answers the Gemara, Efshet Mitzlan is Zivusik. You can go to a Rav on Shabbos and say to him, Avchijo Mai don't be a Nazir. So therefore, you can have it. So it comes out, by the way, at this stage of the Gemara, that Sumchas is holding like Beis Shammai, like Beis Hillel in that first argument. Oh, like Beis Shammai. Why? Because they're saying the only reason why he's allowed to drink, is allowed to take wine, is because he could undo it. But he's going like Beis Shammai, not like Beis Hillel. By Truma as well, you can do Shiur, you can undo Truma as well. So why by those? Says what? If he asks of it, if he decides to undo the Truma, it'll go back to be Tevel, and then once again he won't be able to eat it.
If he already took Truma
No, it is Truma. The worst, all of this slowly but surely. Again, you put a cup of Truma wine by the Tchum, and you say that will be my Kiddush Shvisa. According to Sumchas, it's okay. And as I point out, as I was trying to point out, this is going to be Shittas Beis Shammai. But according to Beis Hillel, there's no problem anyway, because even if you can't drink, somebody else can drink it. But Beis Sumchas held, no, you have to be able to drink it yourself. So therefore, by Truma you can't do anything. By Nazir you can undo. By Truma as well you can undo. Answers more, if you undo the Truma, it will revert to become Tevel.
Why should it become Tevel?
That's what happens. Truma, which you undo, becomes Tevel. Think about it. Let's say you had 100 bunches of grapes. You took 5 of them for Truma. So now it's 5 bunches of grapes. You say, oh, I don't want them to be Truma anymore. So what are they? They're Tevel, because nobody took Truma Samaisis. Oh, that's the next Kasha of the Gemara. First it becomes Tevel. So what you should do is, on Shabbos, undo it, and then take Truma Samaisis. Says, we don't take Truma Samaisis when it's not next to each other. Why do we take Truma Samaisis when something's not next to each other? Explain better. Let's say I've got a bunch of grapes at home now, and I've got grapes here. Why can't I say the grapes over here
Can't guarantee the ones at home.
That what?
Maybe they're- no.
Maybe they don't exist. If they don't exist, maybe somebody's already eaten them. Therefore, these grapes can't become tumor for them. If they don't become tumor for them, they remain tevel. It's important halacha to remember. Tumor which is done incorrectly remains tevel. So therefore, we don't need to take tumor samais which is not there. So therefore, you have to go there. Afraid the Gemara, go there and take tumor samais. As well, the rest was shiur. We're talking about where there's exactly a cup of wine. And what you're going to do, which is tumor. You undo it, right now it's tevel, and then you take tumor samaisis, you'll take off 5%. But now it's not a full cup of wine. And how much do you need for ruvei tchumen? We said 2 cups of wine. So now you've taken off a tiny bit, and it's no good. My piska. Why in the world are we talking about somebody that took the minimum amount of wine? Most people, they do a ruvei tchumen, take a bottle of wine and leave a bottle of wine. And therefore, there should be enough to undo the tumor, and then afterwards take off a percentage and still have enough that you can still have a tchumen. And you have to be able to do it. When do you have to be able to do it? When the Erev Tchumen is Chal. When is Erev Tchumen Chal? The minute that Shabbos comes in, Ben Hashmoshes. That time, Ben Hashmoshes, you're not allowed to do Tumas HaMaisros. Why not allowed to do Tumas HaMaisros? Because it's Makriv Patish, Tikkun Mona, it looks like Tikkun Mona. So therefore, again, Sumchas hold that Nozeh is okay. Now, you should always jump up and ask, what's going on? Nozeh, how can he undo it? It's also not allowed to do She'ela on Nizirus on Friday afternoon, once it's been Hashmoshes. What's the answer? The answer is, by Nozeh undoing his neder, he's now able to drink wine on Shabbos. It says, Oinek Shabbos. Oinek Shabbos, they allowed you to do She'ela in order to be able to enjoy your Shabbos better. But for this person to undo his truma just in order to be able to do tchumen, that we don't allow. So again, so let's go take a look at this. We've got 4, no, because it doesn't really help you to eat it. You can eat it anyway. Let's get through again. There's 4, the bit that you're going to do to us, like this. There's 4 shittas we've had so far. From the most machmir, the shittas Beis Shammai, you have to take everything you need, your clothes and your bed, and food. That's shittas Chananya and Beis Shammai. The next most machmir is Beis Shammai. With the other Beis Shammai, that you have to be able to drink it yourself. So a Nazir can't use wine, a Yisrael can't use tumah. The next machmir is Sumchus, that he says. A Nazir with wine is okay because you can undo it. A Yisrael with tumah is no good because you can't undo it. Because it's tickle. The most meikol is Beis Hillel, the type of our Mishnah that says that what? As long as somebody can eat it, it's okay. Says the Gemara. We have a Mishnah which says, there are certain things that depend on each person's individuality. There's no fixed measure. Can you tell me something which is dependent on a person's individuality? No, it doesn't. Truma is a percentage of the Truma. What? A percent.
Size of the mace going through the door.
No. I think you'd say something much easier. A kohen has to do a kohen for his mincha. So now, when you do a kohen for your mincha, so every kohen has a different size. Did you ever try and measure your kohen? You've got loads of kohen here. Did you ever try and do a mincha to see how big your mincha is?
Hello?
Of keteros.
Hello?
What's happening? Okay. Of keteros. A person wants to do keteros, a kohen gadol, Mamshach might come before Yom Kippur. The kohen gadol needs to do his fistful of his
Hello?
keteros.
Hello?
Yes?
Hello?
Yes, he asked me a question.
Yeah, you can't take Truma on Shabbos.
Right. Is that Yehuda speaking? Yehuda?
Father-in-law.
Oh,
My father-in-law.
that's exactly what the Gemara says. I'm not sure that's exactly what the Gemara said. You can't take it even bin hashmoshes because it's tikkun moneh. Therefore, that's exactly what the Gemara says. Therefore, that's what the Gemara says. That according to Sumchus, you can't have a truma for Yisrael. By Nozir, we said that you can, because you're allowed to be shul on the neder by bin hashmoshes. By truma you can't, and that's Bashenkin according to Shittas Beis Hillel. Shittas Beis Hillel. So I didn't realize you were calling me. I the whole time assumed that there was just background noise. I'm sorry for not answering quicker. That's what the Gemara did say earlier. Bashenkin according to Beis Hillel hold that it doesn't matter if you can't eat it yourself. You're right that you can't undo truma on Shabbos, but you can allow somebody. You can have what's the word for it? As long as somebody can eat it, it's okay. So again, so the Mishnah is listing out things which go according to individual person's measurements. Right. So a Kohen's Kohen mitzvah mincha. The Kohen Gadol b'lo yichaflu k'teres. V'ashus b'lo yilugma b'yom kippur. V'chas v'sham, a person drinks b'lo yilugma b'yom kippur. It's not a fixed share. It depends on the person's cheeks. And according to the amount of food for an Eruv. So it says, well, Keman. It's going to Sumchas. The fact that we go according to each person is like Sumchas that says that you have to be able to eat it. No, that's a different thing. That's just about a bias. Yeah. No, I'm saying every person of the, unless you've got 10 people all walking.
10 times that amount.
That's to say not. That's a different thing.
Do you not have to?
You don't have to. No. Again, the point is like this. The world says that like Sumchas that says you have to have something which is suitable for the person. You don't even have to eat it yourself. So do you remember at the beginning of the day we said, the Shulchan Aruch holds that even if a person is a very, very big eater, how much do we measure it by? A normal person. And over here, the Mishnah says we go according to each person's individuality. A hungry person, so the baby is a normal meal. Answer well, no, you've got no time. That Mishnah can fit in even according to the Mishnah. How? The Mishnah is talking about a not well person that eats even less. For a Ruvet Chumin, you can do even less. Aber Ravson, that somebody eats a lot, but the diet is called Adam, his das is bottom, and you go put everything else. I just want to say one small point. It's like this. Why do we say by Achil and Zokin that we don't say but the diet is called Adam, and we go down in the Shiur? Ma'ashekin, somebody who has a very hearty appetite, we don't go up. Why do we go L'Kula? You could say because it's above the L'Kula. That's not the reason, though. That's not the reason. No, it has to be suitable for it. Again, why by Chayil V'Zokin do we go down? By a big eater, a fresser, we don't go up. And the reason is like this. No, nothing of the sort. It's illogical. It's much more small. No, why? The answer is like this. No, because any person who would become not well would also eat less. So what he's doing is not abnormal. So therefore you can't say bottle diet is kol adam. Because that is normal. For a person like that, in this situation, that is the normal amount to eat. Masha'enkin, this person is eating more, is eating an abnormal amount.
And a 20-year-old who's eating the pigeon size.
No, you're right. We didn't say that. We never said that. We said a chila and zoki. Person who's not well and zoki, you can't say butter that's kolodom. Because anybody is like that would do that.
Someone's got small appetite.
They're overeating, that's butter that's kolodom.
Someone's got small appetite, we do it.
No, we don't put kolodom. Right. Well, a kohen the base of fas. The Mishnah says that a kohen is allowed to put his eruvei tchum in the base of fas. What's the base of fas? It's a field plowed over. Midrabanan l'chayshash, that the small pieces. Why? You can just blow your way through. Now the Gemara says, once it's been threshed, once it's been crushed, trampled on, then it is toy, because we say that all the little bones have become either underneath the ground or even less than the soil. Even in the Beis HaKvos, why can you even put it to the Beis HaKvos? Because you can make a mechitza and go in a box, in a wagon, or in a cupboard. So imagine that sometimes you see this picture. People in the older days, before they had carriages, would have this like wagon which was carried by 4 people, right? So he's in his own bubble. And then what happens is he's carried along, and then what happens is he can get to the Beis HaKvos. So wait a second now. Rabbi Yehuda said that. The Chachamim didn't say that. The Chachamim said that you can't do it to the Beis HaKvos. So why not? Why did the Chachamim and Rabbi Yehuda argue about such a thing? The answer is more like this. Because Sava, oil, zoruk shmei oil, a moving mechitza is considered an oil. Uplukta tani tanoi, the tanya nichnas el sa'ami v'shila tibo migdol, ve'bi mitari avisav Yehuda mitari. The micromifig masav zoruk lav shmei oil, masav zoruk shmei oil. That means it's machrekas over here. Do we say that a moving tent, something which is an enclosure, and it's a proper mechitza, But it's being moved from place to place. Is it a mechitza or not? And here Rashi says a very important point. And that is like this. That the truth of the matter is, if let's say I'm a kohen, I'm also a kohen, let's say I was a kohen, and I put a basic cross, what's the problem? I can't eat it. Everybody else can. And our Mishnah said that a nozi with wine and a kohen with truma is okay. So what's going on over here? Says Rashi, that this part of the Mishnah is going l'shita sumchus, and not the shit of the Tanna Kamma. Now, if you look at the Mishnah right at the beginning, it is quite difficult to read it into the words. Because the Mishnah starts off by saying, that's okay. So says Bechunin. Or they could base a fast with the votes. But only Rabbi Yehuda says that. The Tanna Kamma says, no, he can't. Why? Because the Tanna Kamma is going to be sumchus. So it comes out, an interesting thing, that this whole machlokas as to whether you can do it to the base of clause is only if you hold that you have to benefit it yourself. But if you don't need to benefit yourself, then you don't need to come on to all of that. That's just Rashi. Other Yeshivas say different shotim. We'll stick to Rashi. Okay, let's stop here because the next more goes on. So I just summarize. So let's remember there's 4 shittas regarding Eiruvin Tchumim. But the most kunedig beisila as long as somebody benefits. You've got sumchas as long as you benefit, but you can even include the possibility of doing she'ela. Then you've got Beishamai in one brisa that as long as then you have to benefit from it yourself. And Beishamai according to Chananya, that not only you have to benefit from yourself, you also have to take your bed and your clothes and everything with to make a proper Eruv. Very good. So wait a second. So we're starting from Rabbi Yehuda Omer in Mitzvah Shem tomorrow. Okay. What do you say?
How does it help to put stuff in the bag and everything?
Oh, it's only going according to the.
Shit, we don't pass Canada.